Songlines are invisible lines crisscrossing the whole of the Australian continent. They are far more than just navigational pathways. Embedded in the songlines and landscape is all the knowledge, data, information, behavioural patterns and spirituality of Australia's original inhabitants. The stories you'll hear in this podcast series come from deep in the heart of the people who tell them. They're not my stories, I'm just a conduit, but as an Australian, they are my history. Come travel the songlines with us and learn about the real history of Australia and Earth's longest continuing ancient culture. Today I'm here at the beautiful Glasshouse Mountains in the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast, talking with Auntie Jenny Thompson, who is the chairperson of Garminungeena Aboriginal Corporation for Women's Business. Hi, Auntie Jenny, and thank you so much for having me.
Hello, Donna. Thank you.
One thing that always happens at the beginning of a meeting is usually there's an acknowledgement of country. Is that something that we or you could do now for us?
We could do, yes. I can acknowledge, well, I can say welcome, because this is part of Wakakabi country. And as being part of that, I can say welcome. But we like to acknowledge the country we walk on and be mindful of the people that walk before us and acknowledge our elders, past and present, and in particular in this area. We acknowledge our mother mountain, Mount Biwa. We acknowledge the strength that she's held this place, and we acknowledge each and every woman that has walked here and over the years. And I want to be able to acknowledge each and every one from the past that we're going to bring into the future.
Thank you very much. That was lovely. And just as you were talking, a beautiful light breeze just blew through. So I think we got acknowledged as well. Thank you. When you said you could do a welcome to country, and oftentimes you'll have an acknowledgement of country, could you just explain the difference between when somebody can do a welcome and when it's an acknowledgement of country?
Well, as I've said, the acknowledgement anybody can do. Anybody can come in, but with welcome to country, it's usually known that it's people from that country that give the welcome. It isn't our way of doing it, I guess, in this modern times, but from my knowledge, it's the knowledge keepers, the elder, the people that would do that. That was specifically would have been their job and their thing to do. And so, but today a lot of our old people are passed, and so we just say, people who actually come from the country. If I was in another place and asked to do welcome or acknowledgement, I would say I don't come from this place, but I acknowledge the people, and I would find out, as I've said to everyone, find out who are the traditional people of the land where we're sitting. And so then when we're saying, we're not just saying we acknowledge the people of this country, but you would give them a name. Mm-hmm. So that's the, there's more to just getting up, and it's just like saying, yes, sir, thank you. What are you thanking us for? So it's like if you say, I acknowledge the Wakakabi people, the Kabi people that of this land, and I'd say because I'm Kabi, I can welcome, because I've got Kabi.
Right.
As a Kabi, I would welcome people, but only in specific areas, because there are other clan groups. So if I went into another clan, like there's different clan groups everywhere, like around Wapadam, for instance, there's a family group that I know of that was there. And you would acknowledge, if you were doing acknowledgement, you might acknowledge that family. So there's still little ways to go with that, to getting people to understand that. But I think it's important that we do either the acknowledgement or the welcome.
Yeah. No, thank you for that explanation. When you say the Kabi people, is that a language group? Is that of the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah, it's a language group. Kabi. We all speak, like I say I'm Waka Kabi, that's on my grandfather's side. And our Waka are the South Burnett people. Mm-hmm. And so it's south of the Burnett River. My grandfather was born on the Burnett River, and we connect with the Mary River. So all in the south it goes, like all that land right through to Kenilworth at the bottom of Maloney. And so, yeah, it's like Cubby people. I'm also learnt to understand that Waka is the nation, and Cubby was the language that we all spoke.
Right.
But we had different dialects.
Right. Actually, yeah. Actually, I do hear, which people listening to this can't see, but I'll probably put on a website at some stage, a map of Aboriginal Australia that's been put out, and that shows that at the time of like white people coming here, there was about something like somewhere between 250 to 600 nations or clans. Clans.
Different nations, and clans. I don't know how it works because there's 700 or 800. I think it was 200 and something language groups and 700 or something like that clan groups in Australia.
Yeah. So there's language groups and maybe different dialects.
It's just different dialect, and it's different. Like one word, some words are more universal. Like some words we could, but there's other words that are strictly for that particular place.
Right.
And it could mean something different by saying that in a different place. It could mean something completely different. So that's again why people should get to know the people, Aboriginal people of the land where they might be, and also maybe sit with them about language, because there's been somebody once said something at a conference and said this word, and anyway he was lucky he wasn't struck down, because he was telling me the story. This old fella came up and said to him, you know that word that you use, well it meant this, whatever it was a different thing.
Right.
And it was in a sense derogatory to them,
yeah.
you know. So there's a lot of learning around the languages, and just think that like there might be one universal one, but I've yet to know, but I do know in the Waka Cubby, we know different, you know, dialects and things like that for different, even the sounding, where it come from.
Yeah. Since coming up here, and for the listeners, I do some volunteer work up here at the Aboriginal Corporation, and since coming up here, I've heard like different stories too. And today you had a different way of pronouncing Nungeena, a beautiful way of pronouncing it.
Yes.
I've even heard a different way of pronouncing. We call it Biwa now, spelled B-E-E-W-A-H, but more Biwa.
Biwa? Yeah, it's Biwa.
Biwa.
And when you say any language word, like anything that's language, you know, in English we're taught to pronounce it and say, you know, and break it up. But in our language, like it's just one, and it's quick.
Okay, right.
And you say it like from the back of your tongue when you're learning language. And so, and I was given this just a few weeks. If you say it quick, it sounds more Aboriginal. Biwa.
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 Okay, can you say Nungeena again?
Nungeena is Nungeena.
Nungeena, that's beautiful.
And you give it that sort of emphasis, you know, like you say that sort of thing. It's got a lot more other than say Nungeena.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So if you say it quick, Nungeena.
Yeah.
And I had to practice that, because when it was given to me, you know, I was trying to get it, and then I was driving back, and Garmi is a Cubby language word for great grandmother. Right. And Yana is the grandmother. Mm-hmm. And they're all in our Cubby dictionary. You know, there's a Cubby and Bachelor. I've got one down there that was here, part of Nungeena. Mm-hmm. And so these are things I think that, you know, we're going to bring back.
Yeah. So, Bachelor, that's up around Fraser Island way, isn't it?
Bachelor.
Bachelor.
So that wouldn't be just Bachelor. It would probably but see, even the B's and things wouldn't have been. It's just when people said words, correct, they would have put them there.
That's right. Yeah. Somebody once even told me, and I don't know how right or wrong this is, but coming up here, that when the white people came into it, it would have been white men, and they would have spoken to Aboriginal men. But then there's still probably women that obviously had their stories as well, but they might have had different ways of different ways of pronouncing things.
And if it's like Nungeena that we found, like Biwa, she's the mother, and so this particular area would be the woman's place and birthing and whatever. and so the women would have carried where men probably wouldn't have even come in near the place. So I doubt if men would have even said the name.
Right, okay. Yeah. So somebody said, that could be too. Another twist to how it was written in English.
Yeah, in English.
Because a white fella wouldn't have spoken to an Aboriginal woman.
I've heard funny little stories around, there's a little book that I read about Gympie Gold, and in there was talking about the different names of the places.
Yep.
And there was a place... so I'll just give you an example, like Tewantin, which is here.
Yep.
And the story is that there was this old Aboriginal man he was boiling a billy, making his tea, and somebody came across, probably one of the settlers or somebody, and asked him, again, two men, asked him what was the name of this place. Now, he would have spoke that in English. Probably the old Aboriginal man didn't speak English. And he answered him and said, Tewantin. And so the white fella said, Tewantin.
Right. But he's actually asked him, do you want some tea?
Tea, Tewantin.
Yeah.
And those little funny little stories like that, I've read that in a little book called Gympie Gold.
Oh, okay.
And so a lot of the way, even your Mundi. Your Mundi now... Mundi, I don't know if you know that language. Mundi means the backside.
Oh, right. No, I didn't know that.
Mundi. And that's one of our Cubby language and Waka language. We all know, we say Mundi, Mundi, in your Mundi.
Okay.
Now, what he was asked, another story where he come up to this old fella and said, what's the name of this place? And the old fella just said, in your Mundi. And that's where your Mundi comes. So your Mundi, the famous Mundi markets. I don't know if they know that story or not, but anyway.
That's a great story.
Yeah. And they're just some of them, that when we can laugh about it too, and it's our understanding of the words. And really, it's the spelling is the thing, because when you're learning English and things like that, you spell it out.
Yeah.
And so that's how, but he would Mundi.
And that's where it came from.
Yeah.
There's actually a funny little YouTube clip. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Barbecue Area. Have you seen?
Yes.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah. I've seen the play of that as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's really well done. It's the flip side, isn't it?
It is the flip side.
And they say the Aboriginal people come in a boat. And all the white people are just having a barbecue.
Yeah,
and they say, what do you call this place? And they look around and they go, it's the barbecue.
And it's funny because, and the thing that's funny, that I think about it, in over the years, like how life was approached and everything, and people coming together and all that sort of thing. And today there's so much out there that you can read and understand and learn, and it's like yourself coming in and talking to an Aboriginal woman and things like that. There's a whole lot of things that we can do, and we the thing though is that we get a laugh, and that thing about reconciliation. Well, there's never been any need for reconciliation between you and I. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been part of this and work. This is just with Nungeena, but it's like everywhere. There's lots of people we've all worked together, and so the reconciliation thing, it's just crazy.
Yeah, look, I have a few thoughts on that too, and especially this Close the Gap initiative of the government, and we've had something just, at the beginning of this year saying, reports come out, it's been so many years and it hasn't worked that well, and my personal thought is, and this is without going into any politics, I'm not wanting to go down that track, but my personal thought is, why close it? The gap is amazing.
Yes.
This is there's a culture here that it's the oldest living, continuous, ancient society.
Yeah. Why, if you're closing it, well then what are you going to do? Because, and anyway, if the other thing I think around closing the gap, yes, it's like a catch up and doing things, but what people don't realise is what you've just said. There's a gap, and it's the gap. It's the respect and everything that we have within that gap. Mm-hmm. Within there, and to learn from each other.
Yep.
So if this is what you're doing, well then, you could do this, or but what's never happened here since in the last 200 and something years is that Aboriginal people have never been listened to. I mean, deeply listened to. And the thing, or sit down, and that's the problem. I said, then, it was all here, and we say when the colonisers, and I'm not talking white or black or brindle here, I'm talking about the colonisers, their intention was, whatever their intention was, to conquer. And that's happened in the rest of the world, when you think of it. There's a lot of places that have been colonised. It's the colonisation that we talk about. And then we all of us can reject that, in a sense. I'm not I've had to learn to be political, because we have political people everywhere, politics. And, you've got to understand, okay, what is politics? But I come back to the thing all the time about talking and being matter of fact. It's a matter of fact. This is how it was. And if you knew, like we've said, and I mean, there's lots of stories that enlighten us and say why. Like I grew up with the question, and when we talk of questioning, like it was not a thing that you would question elders.
Yeah.
They would tell you stories and you would just believe it. And even, it doesn't matter how big you were or how small you were, you just listen, and then you'd go off playing. And then later on you could remember something that they said. But it's just, like I said, if we listen to the Aboriginal people, but what happened was that because we weren't listened to, or because, somebody might come out and interview, and I remember a lot of old people saying to me, I'm not talking anymore. So they just sat quiet. Or they'd say, I've got no one to hand on, I have to tell my stories to. Because our young people got so caught up, or they're so busy, that nobody has the time to sit down with an elder, with an older person. And that doesn't mean, that goes right across the board. Yeah, it's not just Aboriginal people. But if people had to come to the country, and I mean, there is a book out there, you probably know it,
Dark Emu.
Dark Emu.
Bruce Pascoe.
Look at the stuff that's coming out of that. Like people, they considered us as nomads, and we had this and that, and we didn't farm, we didn't do that. Well, we farmed the whole country, and there were people that stayed in one place, like you said, a village. And Flinders wrote that back. Yeah. And he sent that back overseas, and there would have been a lot of stories like that, even with Cook, and when they come along, they would have sent that back.
Yeah.
But it was somehow not listened to or whatever over there, and it was always about conquering a country.
Yeah, there's a lot in what you just said then. There's another book by Bill Gummidge, I think, and he talks about the same thing, and he says a lot of those writings of the early explorers, in inverted commas, a lot of them say that some of the vistas that they saw, they say was like an Englishman's park, because that's how well manicured or managed it was for purposes, reasons. Look,
I mean, you can go back to in England, like there's a whole lot, the same things that were going on overseas, it would have been happening here.
Yeah.
And then of course there was this cut-off, and that's what I was going to say, was when I was a child, and never questioned, coming home, living in a very racist town, and coming home one day and going to the old people and say, why didn't you use your magic to send all these people back where they come from? And the old people said there was time. Now, I didn't question that, because I couldn't question. I said, But they said, by and by it'll all turn around. Now, that has been a thing that goes on in my mind, and it always comes into me, that it was time. It's like anything we do, it was time. We did it, but by and by it'll turn around. And so... And you don't have to wait for the turning around, because, we're told to wait for the turning around, but it's been, you see it in the wind, the seasons and everything, and it's like nature just does it.
Yeah.
And yet we're, as humans, we're trying to prove this and prove that, And we've been in this turning around, and we are in an amazing place at this point. All of us. The people have come into this country and they've healed. There's a whole lot of things that our old people, our ancients, would have known what was going on in the other part of the world when it would have broken off. I mean, there's even that's complex and all that sort of thing. So I try not to think too deeply around that. I just sort of think, well, this is where we are today. This is what we're doing today. And then you fit it into that, what I was just saying about a turning around.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. Yeah. Because here we are, you and I, you're one of those white ones, those dug eyes we would have called them when I grew up, and I don't know who I am, but I'm Garminungeena now. Yeah. And that auntie status left me a long time ago, and I'm glad because aunties only growl anyway.
Okay, like I say, there's so much in all of this that I can keep asking you questions about it. Hi there, everyone. I'm just butting in to say that this fantastic chat with Auntie Jenny Thompson went for about an hour and a half. To keep the podcast to a comfortable listening length, I'm breaking it up into 3 parts. I hope you've really enjoyed part 1. In part 2, Auntie Jenny will tell us the story of Nungeena and some of the history of Nungeena Aboriginal Corporation for Women's Business, located in the beautiful Glasshouse Mountains area of the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Auntie Jenny will also tell us a traditional Aboriginal story about the Glasshouse Mountains family, consisting mainly of Mount Tibrogargan the father, the mother mountain Mount Biwa, and the son Mount Coonarin, or Crookneck as he is known locally. We'll also touch on songlines following underground water and other fascinating topics. Also, there's a few things that Auntie Jenny and I talk about that you might like to look up for yourselves. For example, the barbecue area video clip and a couple of books. Dark Emu by Bruce Pascoe was one, and another author that I mentioned was Bill Gummidge. Didn't talk about the title of his book, but his book is The Biggest Estate on Earth, How Aborigines Made Australia. I'll be including links and references to these things that need some background explanation on a website or blog that I'm currently setting up. Some of this new techie stuff is taking me a bit longer to get my head around than I originally thought it would, so bear with me and be on the lookout for either a website or blog with handy links and references. I'll let you know when that's up and running. Thank you for listening to part 1 of Auntie Jenny Thompson's chat with me, and stay tuned for parts 2 and 3 coming very soon. Thank you for listening to Songlines of Australia. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to this podcast and come with us on an incredible journey following multi-dimensional songlines across country and through time and space.